All right, all you, Carey.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm Carey Sipp, and I'm the Southeastern Regional Community Facilitator for ACES Connection, and have worked with Elaine now for about 20 months, I guess. Elaine Miller Karas is the co-founder and director of Innovation, Vision, and Creativity for the Trauma Resource Center, and she's the author of the book, Building Resiliency to Trauma, the Trauma and Community Resilience Models. Elaine is a world traveler who has worked internationally to bring healing to our planet, the people of our planet. Her models to date have been shared in 39 countries, Asia, Africa, North America, the Mideast, South America, and Europe. She is recognized as an international speaker and author, and has presented the Community Resiliency Model at the Skoll World Forum and the United Nations. I could keep reading for probably 20 minutes about all the things that Elaine has done, but the thing that she has done that we love most about her is her willingness to share with us and to share with the world what she has worked so hard to create and to share. And that she just never turns us down. It's amazing how willing she is to come into the ACES community and share these tools that are so helpful for those of us who have high ACEs or ACEs. I'm sorry, somebody just started cutting the grass next door. I'm so glad I have my earphones on. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, good. But that she shares this with us because it's great for people who have ACEs and great for people who work with people who have ACEs. And so that kind of makes it good for everybody. So Elaine, we have a couple of questions that people have shared with us before we start. These were sent in last night. And if Barbara Liebert is on the call, let's see, I can look and see if Barbara's on. And then, yep, she's here. Okay, Allison, you can unmute Barbara. And Barbara, do you want me to read your question, or you have it in front of you about what a statewide model would look like?
Sure, you can read it, and then maybe I'll add to it if there's a clarification needed. Thank you.
Great. And this was such a great question because we hope that many more states take this into their overall mental health plans, actually. So Barbara sent on the question, what would a statewide model look like, and what would be the attendant cost for a statewide program that would immediately deploy trained, culturally sensitive, compassionate mutual aid or community health workers or some other appropriate title, residents, so I guess you mean neighbors among neighbors, to help support the mental health needs of isolated, lonely, and depressed Californians, but let's call it everybody, during this mental health crisis caused by COVID-19. And then she writes further that this pre-existed COVID-19, but COVID-19, of course, has put a spotlight on about a cajillion different inequities in our system. So, so go ahead, Barbara, and add to that if you want to, and then Elaine.
Elaine, and thank you for reading that. So I think the question sums it up, but I might just add that I work for the Steinberg Institute in Sacramento, and we are trying to put together information that we might share with the administration of California to do exactly what you just said, to try to immediately deploy people who are basically trained that can go out into the communities and knock on doors with appropriate safe distancing to help those people that are feeling so isolated and depressed, because we know that this is the other crisis that's come along with COVID-19. And so we're really trying to get a sense of how many people would it take to serve the 40 million people that are in California, and what would the general cost of that be if we could get, say it's 30,000 people, or maybe it's 10,000 people. How could we quickly get them trained? What would be the cost of that?
Well, I don't think I could possibly give you the cost right now because we'd have to figure that out. But I mean, it's certainly something that we could talk about later, but let me tell you a little bit about the model and how, in fact, I see that Kelly from Wilmington, North Carolina is on, and I might actually ask her to say something about, she's one of our community resiliency model teachers in Wilmington, and actually Carey's from Wilmington as well. But we've done a number of trainings when we could go in person and they're called Community Resiliency Model Teacher Trainings. And the idea that has come forth from our organization, and this really evolved after our work in Haiti, and also because I used to be the Associate Director of Behavioral Sciences at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. And at Arrowhead, we have many underserved, marginalized community members. But it became clear to me that we did not have enough mental health providers then, certainly not now either, to be able to respond to as many people that needed help. And so, but every community has natural leaders. They have natural leaders that people go to when they're suffering and when they have a struggle. So the idea came about that what would happen if we could train natural leaders to be the wellness skills teachers of their communities. They could be mental health providers, but they may not be. They could be a minister. They could be the community activist of that particular community. We've trained a lot of people in different faith-based organizations, and that includes Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian. It goes on, because many times our religious leaders are the first responders, but there's also many community members that work within their organizations. But we've also trained community members who work with community-based organizations to be able to go out into their community because they know their community best, right? So they know, okay, there's that pocket of people in a certain part of North Carolina that live in a very rural area, and boy, could they use our model, and there's a really fantastic person there that maybe we can get in to be trained as a community resiliency model teacher. So what's happened since the pandemic, which to me is so ironic in some ways, is we've been a really busy organization for the last few years since we have cultivated the community resiliency model. But we did not have an online learning platform. Well, we do now. And so now we can do teacher training. So we have two different models. We have the community resiliency model that we're talking about here, but we also have one called the trauma resiliency model, which is for mental health providers that has some additional skills, because many people in the mental health community now are also working online through Zoom and other platforms. So in any event, what I would suggest to your organization, and I think you've already talked to Michael Sapp, our CEO, or someone did, yes. So because he's told me about it this morning, but that is that we could create a program where we do teacher trainings, and that you identify people in different pockets of California, but it could be different pockets of any place. Like in North Carolina, we have probably more trainers per capita because they started a long time ago. We have people in Raleigh, we have people in Wilmington, we have people in Shelby and Charlotte, Asheville. So we have pockets all over the state. And so you can bet, and I'm going to ask Kelly to say something. Kelly, you have to unmute yourself for just a second because she's one of our amazing teachers, and maybe she can say something about what she's been doing.
And before she does that, can I just back up just a minute? Because, you know, I forgot my W's here. Your who, what, why, when, and how, for crying out loud. But to just say that for people who don't know, that the community resiliency model is an ACEs science-based biological model for helping individuals become emotionally regulated during natural disasters and other dysregulating times. And you know, we're living in a dysregulating time. And one other thing, quickly, Elaine, where Kelly and I are, New Hanover County, there have been, I think, more than 1,000 people trained or who have learned about CRM, the Community Resiliency Model. And just yesterday morning during the community ACEs initiative call, the New Hanover Resiliency Task Force, Elaine, I haven't told you this is so cool. There were 78 people on the call, and one of the pop-up questions was, how many of you are using self-regulation tools that you've learned from us in the last year or whatever? And 56% of the people said they were using these tools every day. So
yeah. That is very cool. So, and I think that's what we've seen is that once you learn the skills, they're so simple that they're very easy to share it with your partner, your kids. Even we just finished a 4-part series for parents, And one of the people said in the chat, I taught my 7-year-old, and then I see my 7-year-old teaching my 5-year-old because she was out of her zone. And that's the exciting part about this. Is not like, oh, you have to have, expert knowledge. You have to have a certain amount of knowledge, but then you can share it. And so we've seen so many derivations of how people have brought the model in. And I think that there's certainly more to your question, more answers to your question, but I think it absolutely can be done. And I think it actually can be done easier now because of the online platforms, because that means that we don't have to be in a particular place to train people. And even there's going to be a time when that we can go out into the community again. But this is a very good time, I think, to train people when many of us are hunkered down, can't leave our homes, and to start training people.
Absolutely. And sorry, now I was able to unmute if you still want me to.
No, go ahead, Kelly. So say what you've been doing there.
Okay.
It's also part of the answer.
Great. Yeah, well, I cannot speak highly enough about this model and the effects on our community. And as Elaine said, the fact that we're able to train a variety of community leaders, from pastors, teachers, mental health providers, all different community leaders, we can reach a wide range of people, which is so incredible. Through, as Carey mentioned, our Resiliency Task Force has some subcommittees. So we have now been able to reach even more people with that by doing different trainings through Facebook Live and different online platforms right now. But also earlier this year, we've been doing, since we got trained a year ago, we've been doing in-person trainings with teachers and a wide variety of community members. So it's been really, really effective. And I, again, cannot speak highly enough about it.
And the thing that's so interesting is I've watched Kelly in a Title I school in New Hanover work with children using this model, and she asks them, are you in your zone? What zone are you in? And so Elaine, will you talk a little bit about
I will.
what the zones are so people get an idea of that? It's so cute.
So I want to say just a couple things though, because I think, of course, we're in this pandemic, and I just want to just say as we start that I just appreciate you all being here. And I know that some of you may be having your own grief regarding, maybe you've lost your job, maybe loved ones have lost their job, maybe people are dealing with the virus, maybe people are in the hospital. So I just want you all to know that I think as a community, we can be here at this few moments we have together to hold the space, that we are in very unusual times. But I want to talk to you a little bit about a resiliency pause, because that was what Carey was talking about. So the part of the model is that what else is true? All of us, suffering comes with life, and a lot of suffering is amplified right now. But when we ask that question, what else is true? Sometimes it can give us a little break in the stress of what's happening in our lives. And that little break is asking this question, is what or who is helping you the most right now? What or who is giving you strength? Who helps you get through hard times? I answer this question many times during my day, because I integrate this into my activities of daily living. So I'm just going to pause for just about 30 seconds just to think about it for a minute. And I'm going to invite anybody who wants to put it into the chat. Is what or who is helping you get through? Family, friends, my dog Charlie, that's me. Dear friends, Faith, co-workers, my online writing circle, my mother, practicing positivity with intention, nature, friends, dog, husband, Faith, colleagues, church family, dogs, and yoga. Well, I just took a deep breath just reading all the things that you all are doing. Look at breathing deep, and really connected. My crazy cats. And music. Well, keep putting it in. And I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, to invite you actually, is for those of you that would want to, is as you're thinking about that thing that helps you get through, to pay attention to what happens on the inside. Because when we talk about regulation, we're talking about nervous system regulation. And this is what I think sets us apart from just thinking about, I need to do things differently. Laughter, that's a big one for me. That sensing in our body and being able to tell the difference between sensations of distress and well-being, we then open up a choice of what we want to pay attention to. And those of you have heard me speak about this, or Kelly, or some of the people on the line that may be community resiliency model teachers, that's a big part of what we do, is help to cultivate the language of sensation. So I'm going to go to the, just a second. Okay, here we go. So I want to tell you that we just have updated our iChill app, which is completely free. It's on the Android store and it's also on the Apple store. And guess what? It is in Spanish. We are so excited. It just came out in Spanish. So you have to download the update and you'll see that there's you can go from English to Spanish, and the iChillApp.com, if you don't have a smartphone, you can also go from English to Spanish. So we really want to let you know that even though we're not going to have time to do everything that we would like to share with you today in terms of all the skills, you can go ahead and learn the skills by just going to the app and beginning to listen to it. So did you want to talk about a little bit about, I'm going to say a little bit about this, and then I'll go to the zones, Carey, is that one of the things I think that's important for us, that we know that many of you, if you look at the circle, that you may be experiencing some of this. Financial insecurity, food insecurity, disruption of your social network. But I want to kind of anxiety. I'm seeing a lot of anxiety, and for some people, the first time. And there's something that's very different about this virus, and that is it's invisible. And now we know that even you can be a carrier and not even know you're a carrier. And that can add to the anxiety and stress, and also to something that we call hypervigilance that really does impact our nervous system, and why those resiliency pauses become so important. The other thing that I also want to just emphasize is that there can be stigma. Many of our Chinese Americans and Chinese people that live here in the country, or Asian, have experienced a lot of prejudice towards them because of feeling like, oh, it started in China. But I think that we also need to remember that we are all human beings, and we are all equally can be affected by this virus. So if you know anyone who has been having those kinds of issues, I've certainly been trying to reach out to them and letting them know my support and encouragement of them and what may be happening to them. So, but I think the other thing is, I know this is, my daughter has this because I'm in my mid-60s, and my daughter is really afraid of affecting me and her dad. So that means we haven't seen my daughter and my granddaughters for 6 weeks. We've seen them on the phone, but it's not the same because we would see them all the time. But I think for many of us, that separation from our loved ones, and especially those of us that have loved ones that may be in nursing homes as well, is really difficult. And not being able to be with sick relatives, whether they have COVID-19 or not, is also adding to some of our distress. So I think the collective grief can be very difficult for us. And that's why paying attention to our ability to regulate our nervous system, because there's going to be chaos for a while. We can't change that, but we can affect how we show up with it. And that's where I think Carey really wants me to talk about the zones, and I'm going to just go to that quickly, is that we want to create a common language. And the common language is not negative. It's not saying, oh my gosh, she's flipped her lid, she's going crazy. We have the language of the resiliency zone or the okay zone. And the resilient zone is like our best self. And notice that it's a wave. So you can be actually annoyed. You can even be sad in the resilient zone, but you can manage the emotions and the thoughts that you have as a result of what may be going on inside of you. So to remember, that is an important part of being resilient. It doesn't mean that we're calm and happy all the time. It means that even though there's so many challenges, we can still show up with our best self and not do what can happen here, which many of us have done probably, because it's part of the human experience as well. So then we have a trigger or a reminder of a stressful event, or just, I get mad at my husband sometimes. There's the two of us in the house. I love him a lot, but I got mad at him the other day, and I didn't get stuck in my high zone, but I did yell at him, and I wasn't very nice. So I apologized to him, of course, but we can go into the high zone or the low zone. And that's a very normal place to touch into, but it's whether we get stuck there. And the high zone can be, we're really angry, we're upset, we were yelling, we have tension in our body. And the low zone can be the opposite of that. We're disconnected, we're depressed. We're just, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm so tired of being home. And, I want to say too, we're seeing the same kind of experiences in our kids, right? And so how do we help people if they get stuck in the high or low zone? Through very simple skills. Many of you have skills that you're using already to help you get back into your resilient zone, like music, all the things that some of you listed. But this is, the community resiliency model is really with intention, and it can become like a practice. And I love, Adriana said, fear of not knowing what to do. This is okay to ride the roller coaster. It is like a roller coaster. And to know that sometimes you get up into the high zone, but you can get back into the resilient zone again. So, but it may, for some of us, depending on what we're dealing with right now, it can take some effort and practice, because going into negative thoughts and feelings and also sensations can be like that magnetic pull that we can't get out of it. So this is, Carey, do you want me to just go right into tracking? Right? My goodness, we're already half an hour through. Carey, what do you think we should go to next?
I think, let's give people some tools that they can really use. Let's just spend about 20 minutes on tools
Okay.
they can really use, because, this little art project that I hold up sometimes and show that I've got my tracking, my self-care, resource and grounding, shifting state that expands my zone. So just talk about those things so people can really take something away that will help them today.
Well, I have to tell you, I got tears in my eyes looking at Kirsten Roberts' comment. My son is watching with me right now. He's 7 years old. He said, that's why you play I Spy with me. He gets it. Exactly. I love that. So these are the kinds of things that we have to, and I'm just going to do a shout out to him because he's understanding what we're talking about. So that's kind of leads me to the thought that, this is for all of us. It's for little ones as well as older ones, that we can all learn to get into a resilient zone and do practices to get us there. But let's get into some skills. So if you have kids or you're working with other people, putting that oxygen mask on yourself first and tracking yourself and being in your zone is going to be helpful for you. And this is a new added slide. I just want to say that, how we model to our children. I mean, if we tell them to do something, but we're not doing it ourselves, it doesn't have the same impact. But we know that through a body-centered model and the way that the brain works, we have something called mirror neurons. So if you're regulated, guess what? Your child has a greater chance of being regulated. So they don't actually have to do the skill to learn the skill as you are in your resilient zone. So the first skill I want to tell you, and it's a little poster, you're going to see this. Do they get a PDF of this? They do, don't they, Allison? Do they or not? Because they could. You can give them a PDF of this if you'd like, because this is something that you could download, or you could put it on your refrigerator, or you can see the way it looks right now. You can even be doing drawings of this with your kids. But these are the help now strategies. And what people are telling me all over the world right now, these are some of the most important ones as they get out of their zone. So if you're really in your high and low zone, your prefrontal cortex is not available to you. But what can help you is sometimes say, let's name the colors in the room. Like, look around your room right now and look at the colors that you're looking at. Let me count down from 20, 19, 18, 17. Maybe that's not enough. Look at the person pushing against the wall. You may need to push against the wall or move or push your back against the wall, because sometimes working the large muscles of your arms and your legs, it can help down-regulate you if you're in the high zone, or up-regulate you if you're in the low zone. Just even simply, if you have a glass of water, is drink the glass of water and notice the coolness of the water, or just the temperature of the water going down. So these are ways that we can come back to the present moment and get out of that higher low zone. And we have 10 on the poster. We probably could have thought of 30 we have someone created, Kathleen Thomas down in San Diego created Help Now Bingo, where you can put stations all over your house doing different things, smelling different scents that can engage all the family members that are hunkered down together if you're still in isolation. So there's lots of fun ways to do the Help Now strategies. And I'll tell you also at the end ways that you can get some of this information from our website. So that's one of the skills. And I'm just going to go through, this model is based on neuroscience. So it is the exciting thing about no matter where you are right now, there's something called neuroplasticity, which means that the brain can change. And so even if you're saying, I'm distressed all the time, I'm never going to get out of this, I'll just, I just want you to know that yes, you can. And I have seen this work all over the world, even with my father-in-law who passed last year, but he was 105 and I used to use these skills with him. So let's go to, there's 6 skills altogether. I talked to you a little bit about help now, but one of the most important is tracking. And so think about, as human beings, we have 3 doorways of how we get information, how we change ourselves. We can think, let's say if we're really upset and we're stressed, we can say, why am I so distressed? I have to calm myself down. I haven't found that that is not the best way to calm myself down because it is in my nervous system, even though thinking and changing the way you're thinking can be helpful. But sensing, this doorway in the middle, I have found is one of the most important ways to regulate the nervous system that sometimes has been left out of the equation. But when I'm up in my high zone, and I know when I'm getting there because my ears get hot. Well, that's kind of slight, but they get hot. That's because I read my nervous system and go, oh my gosh, I'm really getting my high zone. I can feel myself getting worked up. So I do something with my hands. I just put it on a table. People don't even know what I'm doing. And I do that. And I like I just did just now, I take a deeper breath. So I'm sensing my body, letting my body help me understand what emotional feeling state that I'm in and what thinking state I'm in. Thinking and feelings, of course, are important, but sometimes we can express our feelings, but we still are upset. Because the reason why is that sometimes when we are really upset, it's about our survival brain. That survival brain is for quick action, doesn't respond really well to thinking and to statements, but it does respond to our sensory system, which is why we want to add that to the equation of what we know. So tracking is the foundation of all of our skills. Tracking is noticing and paying attention to sensations. And here we have a little dog sniffing. And basically the questions are, what do you notice on the inside? Very important question for you. And is that sensation pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And when you ask those questions, then you can start being aware of what happens to you. Terry said, will spiritual connection be another? So I would say that the spiritual connection, of course, is very important, but that's our second skill, which is a resource. And many people have incredible spiritual resources. And then I would say to them, I was in Atlanta a year ago, and we trained a number of ministers, chaplains that were working at the prison, at juvenile prison there. And one of them came up to me and said, Elaine, I want to tell you something that happened to me. I have been praying the Lord's Prayer every day of my life. He said, but this morning, he said, I sensed what it was like when I was saying those words. He said, I felt this spiritual connection to God that was amazing and maybe unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. So it's using all of us as humans about all the different things that we have, including those spiritual connections to our life. But when we sense them, that is one of the most amazing things, when there are things that cultivate our well-being, because what we pay attention to grows, and that is based on neuroscience.
And that's
So,
the good old ACEs science about people
yes.
who grew up with a lot of ACEs and had their amygdala be full alert all the time. And you came into ACEs science really early on, like in 1998.
1997, I think, is when I first read that, because I was a teacher of family medicine. I was trying to explain to the young doctors why so many people were coming in with quote unquote somatic symptoms, or what they would call symptoms in their head. I said, no, it's in their body. And that was one of the first really exciting articles that we could say, oh, we have really good evidence now. It took it out of the mental health field and made it a public health emergency. And that's what I love about what you have done with ACEs Connection. Because brain cells that fire together wire together, and that means, it just means what you pay attention to grows. If you decide to plant flowers or vegetables in your garden, but you say, I'm only going to pay attention to the weeds, I think those weeds are pretty nice. If you just water the weeds, what's going to happen? It's going to be weeds all over your body, all over your garden, and not the cultivation of your flowers and the vegetables. And that's the same thing inside. And many of us have been cultivating the bad things inside of us, not knowing how important it is to pay attention to sensations of well-being. Okay. So this is just what I said earlier was that really the most people ask me my elevator speeches, when I go all over the world, or now when I'm just in my home, going all over the world through Zoom, is that what's the most important thing? To tell the difference between sensations of distress and well-being. So we track the autonomic nervous system. And I'm going to ask you all to do something because we've been sitting for a little bit, is move your hands really fast in the air, as long as you have really fast, so that your heart rate's going up. Okay, stop. Does anybody notice that their heart rate is a little bit faster? Breathing a little faster? That's your sympathetic. That's preparing you for action. So now I'm going to invite you to move your hands really slowly, like you're in slow motion. Or maybe if any of you do Qigong or doing like a dance. Oh my gosh, I just yawned. That's a release of the autonomic nervous system when it gets fired up.
And it's
Look at
catchy.
Carey, you started yawning too. I love when that happens.
Contagious.
Ooh, it's contagious amongst humans and primates. So that's your parasympathetic nervous system. Are any of you noticing that your heart rate is slowing down? And so basically what we want everyone on the planet to learn is how to track their autonomic nervous system. Because once you do that, then you have a choice. If it's because our autonomic nervous system is wonderful. If there's a threat, we want the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic, to take charge and to get away. But for some of us right now, because we could be having so much anxiety, we may feel like our heart rate is up all the time and we have tight muscles and we're not feeling that good on the inside. So we want to do things to access that parasympathetic nervous system so that we can rest and digest and have those resiliency pauses that give us a break. So, and also, just so you know, there's a lot of people that are being called hypochondriacs right now because there can be an over amplification right now. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard all over the world, well, I got a cough, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is that it? Has anybody besides me? I actually did this one night going, yep. So just know that that's really common right now. And that's part of, I think, the invisibility of the virus and how it is promoting fear for some of us. I'm going to just say something about the science, and that there is a science that actually supports tracking, and it's called interoception, interoceptive awareness, and that's our ability to observe body sensations and then to respond as a result of those body sensations. Like today, it's really hot in my part of California. So if I go stand in the sun, what do you think I might do? I would move to the shade. I would go inside the house where there's air conditioning. That is real. So that's why we pay attention to sensations to regulate ourselves. So we are already doing that. It's the same thing as like if your bladder's full, there's something you got to do. So you're already sensing your body. And so we're saying, but what if we paid attention to every time, let's say if you listen to the news and you find yourself getting rumbled up, well, maybe you cannot not listen to the news, but you don't have to be rumbled up necessarily every time you listen to it. If you start tracking your body, you may do something else. Say, well, maybe I'll put on the Disney Channel. Or like for me, I watch Hallmark. I know that's sometimes a little bit of a resource for me. Okay. So resourcing is going back to the person said about spiritual. It can be anything. It can be a person, place, a thing, a memory. It actually can be real or imagined. It can be internal or external. So I'm going to, and also this, if any of you can see that little beautiful little girl there is my granddaughter. Since I made the slides, I get to put her there. Her name is Madison. She lives in San Diego. So I'm going to just invite you for a moment or so to think about a resource. Could be your faith, whatever it might be. And I'm going to invite you to try the tracking and to see what happens. Where does that sensation land in your body as you think about? I can see someone saying their faith. Now think about, what's your favorite prayer? Is there a particular, maybe there's a church service that you like to go to? I hear from a lot of people, gospel music is a very important resource for some people. My husband, it would be the Rolling Stones. Yeah. Being of service and gospel music calms me. So just even notice what's calming you on the inside. And I'm really going to invite people to pay attention to those sensations, because that's what this all is about, is the regulation. regulating your nervous system. I was talking to a friend of mine at Loma Linda University, and he was telling me about one of his colleagues who had COVID, and he shared his colleague, he's better now. And he said, but when he had it, the thing that helped him the most was when his friend called and said, maybe we should do some resourcing together. And he said, his friend said, I knew these things, but I had forgotten them. And so they were able to resource together, and that helped remind him that even though the virus was inside of him, there was something else that was true inside of him as well. His desire to live and to be well. And there was a deep breath associated with that.
Paula Vanderveed has a great comment about, you know, the unhealthy resources that we can turn to, which as a person in recovery for 24 years, I know the unhealthy resources, shopping, eating, you know, I've stayed away from alcohol for 21 years, but it is so much better to get these natural resources of a memory, or even holding, I've got the stuffed animal of the owl that, you know, from my Community Resiliency Model collage that I did with Kelly. And, you know, holding something that is dear can help ground and is so much better than the long-term effects of chowing down on sugar or carbs or something that's not going to last long and it's going to have a bad impact going forward.
Well, and Carey, just what you just did, showing that collage, you know, that would be a family activity that any of you could do. You know, get a bunch of magazines and get a piece of paper and some glue, and you can make family collages of things that are helpful to you as a family.
Yeah, this is what we did with a bunch of art teachers in New Hanover when Kelly was teaching them the model.
Oh, Kelly, look at that. You look at her smile too. Feels good to be able to share that. People say, I feel like I'm sprinkling fairy dust of well-being when we do the skills. We see that happening, you know, even in the darkest of times, I have to say, even in the darkest of times. Okay, so those are resources. And so I'm here. Oh, my cats. Everyone who should have a collage unique to them. So simple, yes. And I love the way, Adriana, you said unique to them. That's a very important part. So let's say you love cats and you go, okay, honey, let's find all the cats we can. You know how mommy loves cats? And the kid goes, I hate cats, right? So you want to make it unique and individual to you, because what may be your resource may not be another family member's resource. So then the final skill that we're going to share with you right now is called grounding. And I told you about how I put my hands on the table, but this is about gravitational security. If we are in the states that many of us are in now, we may not even be able to feel like we're in the present moment. We may be thinking like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh. And then they're saying it's going to be in October. Is that good? And then we're getting ourselves all worked up. But if we stay in the present moment, all we can do is deal with what's in front of us. And that doesn't mean we don't plan for the future, but it means that we're not as anxious about planning for the future. So I'm just going to invite you for just a moment, wherever you're sitting, or if you want to stand or lay down, or whatever you're doing, is just to bring your attention to how your body is being supported by a surface, whether it's the sofa or the chair, the floor, a bed. And as you just bring your attention to the present moment, for those of you that if it's comfortable, is to notice what happens on the inside of your body. What's going on with your breathing, your muscle tension, relaxation, your heart rate. I've done this a lot, so I'm noticing a deeper breath, and I had some tension in my shoulders and it just released. It's very simple. Now, for some of you, it may be not so comfortable to pay attention to the body. That's not uncommon experience when people are first learning. So what I would like to invite you to do, if any of you notice any uncomfortable sensations in your body right now as you're quieting your body, can you bring your attention to someplace inside that feels a little bit better? Could be, say, if your back was problematic, maybe your feet feel better. See if there's any possibility of it shifting into even being neutral. And for some of you, if you find that's not the case, you can, just open your eyes and look around the room and name the colors in the room. So that's grounding.
I went and got my owl.
Oh, Carey, what happens with you when you hold your owl on your lap?
It helps settle my 7-year-old kid's stomach down. And
Well, there you go.
And it's helped me sleep. A friend sent it to me about 5 weeks ago, and it's just been, he showed up right on time.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about this is that some of you are saying, it just doesn't take that much time to do this. But I also, Carey, you brought in something that for some of us, in order to ground, we might need to have something on our lap, sometimes something heavy too, sometimes a blanket, or maybe even some people have weighted blankets, and if you don't have any of those kinds of things, you can just put something heavy inside of a backpack and put it on your lap. Because for some of us, especially any of us here that have had developmental trauma, we have had adverse childhood experiences, sometimes when we try to ground, we sometimes leave our body and we don't feel like it is embodied. So that is one way to help you do that. And also, any of you that are shorter stature, try to make sure that you can have your feet on the ground. Because if you can't feel your feet on the ground, sometimes you feel a little wobbly. So try to do that as well, because that can be more helpful for you. And especially with your children, oftentimes chairs aren't made for the size of little person's bodies. So actually grounding on the floor sometimes can be helpful. Oh, some people have heavy bears. That's great, because those are ways that we can, be more in the present moment. Oh, and someone else has a heavy teddy. So see, these kinds of strategies are out there. And so what we're just doing the 20-pound cat works too. And I just love that. Well, so that's grounding. So that's basically, we taught you the basic 3 skills pretty quickly, but remember that you could go to the iChill app. It's also my voice in English. It's Martha Parra's voice in Spanish. And you can listen to these skills in order to strengthen them in you. So Carey, back to you. What would you like to do now? The time that we have left.
To talk about that beautiful slide that you have, number 35. It's got a lot of tiny print on it. But
I know, and I made it, and it should probably be a handout rather than that. But I saw another derivation of this that I didn't like, and I said, I'm going to do this for our model. But I think it's, the whole question is, how am I focusing my attention during the pandemic? Who do I want to be showing up as? And I think that our resiliency skills can help us get into our resilient zone to be our best self. So if we look at, we put in, and Brendan Ozawa Silva, a friend of mine, helped me put some of these in here. The high-low zones. Negative thoughts keep reoccurring. I send emails or post on social media out of fear. I have trouble sleeping. Or sometimes you may find that you can't sleep at all, or sleeping too much. I find my negative emotions spilling onto others. So some of you may identify with some of these higher low zone states, because this is just common that some of us would be feeling like that. So how can we move into our resilient zone? Well, you can identify your resources and track what we just did. You can focus on your sensations of well-being. You can identify the sensations that are connected to your emotions and thoughts if they're negative, and see if a skill might help you. If you're really stuck in the higher low zone, try a help now strategy to reset your nervous system. We also have something that there's a skill called gesturing, which we didn't get to teach you, but it's a really simple one that many of us have self-calming gestures, and we suggest doing a self-calming gesture. Like mine is my 2 thumbs like this. I've been doing it since I was a little girl, but most of us can identify a self-soothing gesture. And then what we want to also then find is what are we in a resilient zone? And when we're in a resilient zone, the thing that's been one of the most sacred things about this for me when I've gone around the world is that when we have been out of our zone and we get into a resilient zone, an amazing thing happens. We become more compassionate towards ourselves. And so we would say, I guess I'm doing the best I can, considering what's going on. Now, some of you may try to say that to yourself, but doesn't seem like it's really embodied. But people say the most embodied things. And then when you have more compassion for yourself, you have more compassion for others. And that's how this spreads. And that's why it's so important that we cultivate our resiliency. And I just want to say one more thing about that. When I think it was Ms. Steinberg said 10%, she could train 10% of Californians. Well, there is a theory that came out of the Resiliency Institute, and I heard about it from a friend of mine at Emory University, Tamara. And basically, this is it's a statistical analysis that if you can get 10% of, let's say, an organization, 10% of a family, 10%, let's say, of a state, of a country, to firmly believe that something is true, it changes the 90%. So if we believed, if all of us on this call believed, regardless of what happened to us as children or what may be happening to us on top of the pandemic, that if we can cultivate our inherent abilities to identify those resources and to regulate our nervous system and to remember that even when we're out of our zone, we can get back in again, I think we could have a much healthier world. In our research that's been done about our model, and I just want to do a shout out, I always do a shout out to Lindy Grabby at Emory University. You know, what we've also learned is that dosage doesn't have to be a lot. So she did a study, and it was just a 3-hour presentation of the skills. And she went out after a year, these nurses who had really high scores in post-traumatic stress and vicarious trauma, and I mean, they were just really burnt out. That was before the pandemic. And she found that 80% of them had an improvement in well-being. And so she and I have spoken. I said, what do you think that's about? It's because they practiced them, because they were easy. And once you learn them, you can integrate them easily. You don't have to leave your workspace. You can, all of a sudden, if you're in a chaotic situation, call up your resource and notice the sensations connected to it. Or many of them did something like they would touch their scrubs. So the sensory awareness, which is really like a grounding exercise of bringing themselves in the present moment. So every single person on this call has the possibility to do that. And I also just want to make sure that any of you that are having trouble sensing your body, to know that if we've had a lot of ACEs, sometimes a lot of us are numb a lot. And that doesn't mean that we can't become unnumb. And so then I want to really recommend that you just begin touching things outside of your body, like, oh, the table, is it hard? Is it soft? So start learning about the language of sensation that way, and that's going to start waking up your nervous system. I mean, at least that's the hope. Oh, look at you, got your owl out again.
Yeah, well, it's so cute. This is so good, and it takes me back to we had yet another question from Rob Waters, who's a writer and editorial services professional, who still says, and as you mentioned, the tipping point, that if we could get to 10%, what a difference it would make, because just as joy is contagious, being anxious is so contagious. So if we could get peace to be contagious, what a thing that would be. But he too is wondering the potential of this model to rapidly train large numbers of people to reach out to the people who are isolated. And in fact, next we'll post a story about the 3-hour training that Elaine is going to do with Kelly and Allison Wine as well on May the 7th and the 14th. And it'll be 2 90-minute sessions to get the full 3-hour training. We'll post that early next week. But, you know, dysregulated policymakers, dysregulated leaders, dysregulated teachers create dysregulation. So yeah, if we could get to that point. So who else has any last questions?
And can I just say one more thing too, is that on our website, we'll be doing 4 specialized CRIM teachings. One will be completely in Spanish by one of our Spanish-speaking CRIM teachers. We have another one that will be done by 2 people in law enforcement for first responders who are CRIM teachers. We will have another one that's just a general one, and then we have another one that will be given by Linda Grabby and Kate Wheeler. who are both nurses for healthcare providers. So they'll have a special focus on working with those populations, and they're listed on our website, I believe now. The other thing, if any of you are interested in the parenting course we just finished, we'll be offering it in our store for sale. But to also know that if any of you find that you can't afford things right now, you can call our offices, and that we will provide that for free. I think it's, and I'm not sure how much they're charging for it. I think for the 8 hours, it might be $25. But if you can't afford that, to know that money is not an issue, because we want you to have it if you can't afford it right now.
Elaine, is the best place to reach you? Some people have been asking me the contact us page on your trauma resource.
Yeah, so yeah.
Okay, I'm
they
gonna
go
copy
to
that link in. Okay.
Yes, if they go to the Trauma Resource Institute, then it has a way that you can send a message to us, and then the staff look at the messages, and then they triage them to me. So if you want to talk to me personally, you can just say, I need to talk to Elaine, blah, 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 and they'll do that. But just so that, I'm working on a very, a project right now that I'm going to be very steeped in until May 4th. Until May 4th, I may not be able to get back to you, which is not that far away, but that's what I'm doing right now.
But if anyone too is interested, on the ACEs Connection YouTube channel, we have some of the past webinars that Elaine and I have done together. We did one that was actually probably the most popular webinar we've ever done. It was following the California fires, and we did this one with someone who'd been trained in the community resiliency model, who had lost her home in the fire and was taking it into Northern California to her neighbors, which is, we can all be a neighbor with this.
Well, and I think if I can just say something like in closing too, is I have a friend who's a physician, and she asked me to speak to her staff on Wednesday, which I did. And what really also the emphasis point is that, our healthcare providers, they're very anxious and worried about their own health and how being a first responder is going to affect their family. But a number of the ones I talked to had really hard things going on in their personal life that had nothing to do with the pandemic. And so I think that's the other thing for us all to remember, is that the pandemic is one very difficult thing, of course, but there's also that doesn't mean that other hard stuff, did not stop happening. So I just want to, reach out to all of you to, go to our website, go to the things that we've done through ACEs, and also all the other practices that you've done and throughout your life. I always like to recall a lady in the Philippines who said to us after Typhoon Yolanda, "Thank you for reminding me what I already knew but had forgotten." Yeah. And I think that's kind of what we do in this kind of very menu-like way, is remind people of that.
That everything we need, we probably already have right here.
Yes.
So, Elaine, thank you so much. Unless we have any, we can go a few minutes more, Allison.
Well, I want to, Carey, how are we going to get the information out about the upcoming workshops that we have? Do we have a plan, or can we direct people on where to stay posted on that?
Yeah, just to stay posted, watch ACEs Connection. I will be posting the story about the 2 90-minute sessions.
Okay, you'll make it a blog post.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
we'll a blog post.
Put it on the webinar widget, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we could do that. Yeah, we could do that.
Well, we don't have to do that. I just want to make sure people know where to look.
It'll be a blog post.
I tell you what, if you all want to I'm just going to open this up. If you all are interested in learning more, just send me an email. I will make sure that you learn about it.
And Allison, if you could just let me know when you guys have the links, I can also publish it on our TRI website as well as our social media.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to fill up really quickly.
Sorry, so I just want to say my email is acebula@acesconnection.com. I just posted it in there. Not the Gmail one, that was a brain fart. So if you are wanting information about that upcoming thing, just go ahead and send me an email, and when we have that blog published, so that you can register, I will forward it to you. I think that's going to be the easiest. So
can I just say one more thing about the Spanish?
Yeah, of course.
Is all of our materials are in Spanish. We also have some other languages as well, but I think that in some parts of our country, I know in California, Spanish is really important. because we have a lot of, even people who speak both languages sometimes prefer to speak Spanish, you know, to learn new skills. So everything is in Spanish as well.
That's so
All of
awesome.
this, at the end of the day, it's about a language of love, of self-compassion and compassion for others. And the more of that compassion we have for ourselves, the more we can have for others. Get on our phones and stay there.
I know, and you know, the thing, Carey, I just noticed too that about Monica's sharing about the E3 tornado last week too. I mean, that is just too much to bear. And again, just, you know, call out that thinking about your community and let us know if there's something we can do.
Elaine, thank you as always, because you bring your complete and total self. You share what you've learned and practiced with so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
It's getting to be that way. It's kind of amazing. I have to say, you know, I just think if you believe in something that you do and that it can be helpful to the world, you don't know how helpful it can be. Actually, you have an idea, just follow it. There's probably people on this call that are going to do some things in the world that are going to help with healing to make us a much better world. I always hope for that.
Yeah, who knows, 5 years from now, 10% of the 98 people they started on this call may be Community Resiliency Model.
I would love that. And also remember that, you know, I always say that the body has a wisdom that words cannot speak. And that's why it's important to include that with our thinking and with our feeling, also to remember our sensing.
My heart to yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, too. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was nice seeing people in their homes, too. I was going through seeing where you are. Thank you.
So thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you so much, Elaine and Carey. Oh my gosh, thank you. If you go to the media section on our website, I'm gonna post Elaine's slides. Elaine, will you email me your slides? I'll post them right now. And so you just go to, just go to acesconnection.com, click on the media button. You'll find all of the videos of this series. This video will go up here shortly. If you're wanting to share this video with others, it will go up on that same, so you just acesconnection.com and click the media button. And then I want to just remind all of you that you can join our website if you're not a member already. You're probably, most of you are members, but just in case some of you are not, I invite you to join as a member. We would love to have you. And I also invite you all to post original content if you want to, and you can do that by logging into our website, going to acesconnection.com and clicking the post button. We welcome, so many of you had so many wonderful things to share today that we would love to have you post your amazing content on our website. And thank you so much for co-creating the ACES Connection community with us. And so that's it. And we hope to see you again next week. And we will hopefully have information about next week's webinars up a lot sooner this week than we did for this coming week than we did this past week. So so that you will be able to plan in advance and register for these in advance. So thank you all for your patience while we navigate this new thing we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, Elaine. Peace.